All right, so you want to use the optimizer and you've just received it and you have no idea what the heck you're looking at. Well, I'm here to help. The very first thing I want you guys to see is there are a bunch of tabs down here at the bottom of the spreadsheet. The very first one I want you to look at is the intro one. It'll help you use the spreadsheet as well as problem solve. Now, there are certain steps you need to take if you've never used the add-in. I forget what it's just called, an add-in for Excel, and it's called Solver. You can see that right here. So if you've never used Solver, you're going to have to follow these steps here in order to actually have the optimizer work correctly. Not hard. There are 2 steps you need to do. I encourage you guys to go look at that. Actually, let's just do this while I'm here with you guys. So the very first thing is go to File, Options, Add-ins, Solver. So File, Options. You go right here to Add-ins. Once it loads for me. Add-ins. And if you can't find it anywhere in here, you go down here to Go. And what Go will do is you'll find Solver add-in right there. And if you don't have it, you can actually purchase it and put it into your Excel version. But you want to make sure that checkbox is visible. Now, the other thing you need to do is go into the developer ribbon at the top of Excel. Here, let me scroll down so you guys can see it. So the developer ribbon up here, drill down on that. And then you want to go to macros. So you can go to macros. Any of these, go ahead and hit edit. I just say go to the save lineup one right down here. I think that's the one I say. Oh, run optimizer. Go to run optimizer, go to edit. That's actually going to open up another, this is your VBA on Excel. And what you're going to want to do if we follow these instructions is find the developer ribbon. File, Options, Customize ribbon. Okay, never mind. Macro, find Run Optimizer, edit. In this new window, find Tools and then References. So right up here, you're going to find Tools, go to References. And here you're going to want to find Solver and you're going to want to check mark that. So scroll throughout all of the boxes until you find Solver. I don't think I had to scroll that far, and make sure that's checked. I'm gonna go cancel. You can X out of this, doesn't matter. You can X out of that, it won't matter. But that's what you need to do before running Solver. Now, once that's all completed, you can run the optimizer fine and dandy. It's not gonna cause any issues. So let's talk about this. In columns A through E, those are the buckets. Those are the bucket numbers for the golfer. So John Rahm is in each of these buckets for each of these stat categories. And if you're unfamiliar with that, what are you doing here? Because I talk about it in my preview video and my strategy video at nauseum. Like it's the main thing that this channel kind of operates around is the bucket system. I highly advise you guys not to update any of these numbers whatsoever. There's no point in doing it. I'm going to have it all updated when I send it to you. So you don't have to do any of that. What these numbers here, the purpose of them falls in this conditional bucket. So this whole bucket, I just call the bucket of conditionals. And we'll go through these here shortly, but not right now. I just want you to know that that's what drives, or this is basically the fuel of what drives the conditional bucket. So you don't want to update this unless you just don't care about buckets, then that's fine. That's totally fine. The player names, why I have them this way, is so you can edit them or you can upload this into DraftKings. Sorry, I was blanking on the place I use these. So if you go and run Optimizer, if you click that button and it creates this lineup, you can go to Save Lineup. And what this is going to do is going to save whatever you have in here as a lineup over under the Lineups tab. So you can see that right here. If you're not familiar with mass uploading lineups into DraftKings, here's what you do. You go to the lineups page that's in DraftKings. You go to that lineups box up at the top. You can see I have 64 entries with this dummy lineup already here. I will update this myself, and how I'll do it is I go to the edit entries button right here. This will bring you to another page that you can look at all the sports you're playing. Go to golf, make sure it's classic, because if you're playing alternate, you know, like the Puerto Rico Open or anything like that, those are also going to be here. But you can see my 64 entries are right there. You're going to hit download. That's actually going to create an Excel file for you. Here, let me just do it. So it's going to create this page. Looks really messy. I delete columns L through T. Actually, I just highlight them and then I hit the delete button. And these are your contests right here. So I like to open these up by just selecting all of them and then just double clicking one of these little lines. Like when the cursor turns into the arrows pointing opposite directions, I just like to double click and that'll open it up. If you want to open it up even more, just so you can see a little bit better, you can do something like this. But it just looks messy to me, so I'm just going to do it like that. Your golfers are right here. And again, we can also open this up wide as well. So each one of my lineups, or I should say this, the one lineup I have has been multiplied by how many tournaments that I'm in. Here's what I do. I go here. Actually, how about this? We can click and select, highlight over all of this, and delete. Hit the DEL button, not the backspace button, DEL. And now I have all these free open spots. So from here, I can go here to the lineup page, and how many lineups, whatever you create, you can actually copy, go to your spreadsheet, paste in there. Obviously, I don't have more than this, but that's how you can mass upload. And oh, by the way, you can also use Excel's sorting function. This is what I do. I do this all the time because I want to know which lineups I'm spending the most money in. I like to, okay, hold on. What I like to do is start in A1. So click and hold and scroll all the way down to the bottom of your contests and all the way over to your entry fees. So you have basically all of the cells you want highlighted in columns A through D. Hit sort. It's going to remove the header because it's going to understand that's a header. And I like to sort by entry fee, largest to smallest. So it shows how much money I'm spending in these contests over here. And you're going to see your top lineups up here. So you can mix and match however you want. You can see all of the contests you're in, things like that. And then when you're done with this, what you're going to do is go back to DraftKings and you're going to hit this upload CSV file. And then from there, you're just going to go find wherever you saved it. So if you have a folder you save it to, that's how you do it. And then once it gets uploaded, voila. All your lineups will be saved to the contest you save them to. So that's why I like using the optimizer, because it does all this for you. And if you want to have a little bit more fun with it, I have this contest page over here, which you can highlight and delete all of your lineups. This is from last week's tournament that I had. I will update this for the Arnold Palmer Invitational, but you can put all of your contests here. Remember, if you highlight A1 down to the end of your contest and over to D, you can then paste that over here. And this randomize button is really nice. So if I were to run this optimizer again and save the lineup, I will now have 2 lineups saved. You can see that up here. And they're of different players. If I hit this randomize button, those 2 lineups just come over here. That's really nice about this macro. And if I go ahead and just copy this, I might as well do this now while I have you guys. Over to the contest selection. Oh, I didn't mean to do it that way. I'm not sure what that would have done. But you can then see how much money you invested, the max dollar that you've spent on a guy, how many times you've owned them. You can see the ownership percentage here as well. But then you just keep hitting this randomize button and just pay attention to let me zoom in a little bit. Just pay attention to the golfers here. I know I only have 2 lineups, but there's John Rahm up top, and now he went down to the bottom. This will randomize up to 200 lineups. So you can save 200 lineups from this page right here. Or I should say here it's going to grab 200 lineups from here, and it's just going to randomize them for you. So if you want no bias in your save, this is what you would do. You just randomize them that way. So that's your lineup page and then your contest page. Super awesome. Like, I absolutely love this tool. I took the time and I added the amount of money that gets invested in each player, because if I'm being honest with you guys, owning Brandt Snedeker in $15 worth of my lineups and I'm not knowing that I'm doing that really pisses me off when I find out he misses the cut and it's not even close. And my high dollar contests, you know, I don't play for a lot, but like, you know, $1, $5 have no chance to win money because Brandt Snedeker is in it. That really, really pisses me off. So I finally figured out how to do this somewhat cleanly. It shows me how much money I'm spending. So this is very much available to you guys. So we went over lineups. We went over contests. I do have a combinations tab here, which again, I'm going to have to update. So we'll save this here. I'll go ahead and delete whatever's remaining. This is from last week's tournament, unfortunately. And then I'm going to copy. Oh, can't do it that way. A real easy tip for you guys. If you want to highlight an entire cell or an entire range, hit Control, Shift, and then down on the arrow key, and it'll select every golfer that's in this range, or just any data set that you have. And then I'm going to copy and paste and transpose it over here. I'm going to have to, whoa. Let me delete all these golfers because they don't mean anything. Also, another little fun tool if you're not aware of, if I select this tile here and I go to Format Painter, which you can't see up at the top, and I just scroll all the way over, it's going to format that all into that red and white text. Here you can see who I'm most commonly matching with a golfer. You can see Jon Rahm has been matched with 5 other golfers. That's what this would say. Or yeah, 5 other golfers. Billy Horschel is his top match. It's because he's the most expensive guy. He's matched with 5 other golfers, but because Billy Horschel is the most expensive, that's why he's matched there. And then you can see that with the rest of them. That also gets saved over here. Let me open this up right here. So it's going to show you how many times, you know, Jon Rahm has been matched with and the quantity of times. This little box up here, this helps me understand the maximum that I have. So let's say Scotty Scheffler was paired with Jason Kokrak 10 times and nobody else is even close. Like I have like 7 or 8 with the rest of the guys. 10 will show me, hey, you better look down here and see how many times you've combined with another golfer. If this is something you don't care about, then no worries. But for me, I also don't want to be burned by having too many golfers paired up with each other. So that's why I also have this here. If you don't care about this, highlight over these 2 columns up here in the M and the N, right click and just hit hide. And that way you don't have to see it. Not that big of a deal. I like to see it, like I said, because I also don't want to be oversaturated with certain combinations. So that would be your combinations tab, contest tab, lineups tab. We got all that. The summary is going to be the bucket system for that tournament, which I have not updated. So currently I have the Honda Classic, but I'll update this to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And then the dream sheet will also be the same dream sheet I talk about in all of my videos. And also that's available for you guys to use with my shared page that I always link in the description of each of my videos. So you'll also see that there, but you can get it here with the optimizer. And then the last thing is the ownership. This is just my way to calculate the maximum or minimum ownerships that I should own a player. I don't mind a computer telling me, this is also based off the bucket system, by the way. I don't mind a computer telling me, hey, you know, don't play 0 amounts of Shane Lowry at the Honda Classic. Play at least 4%. But don't max it out. Like put them in 9% of your lineups. You could do it that way. You can also, oh, by the way, this tab isn't that big of a deal to you guys. I use it to set my max exposures right here. You can go in here and you can update this whatever you want. You can hand type this in. There is no reason, or there's no hidden values, nothing. You can update this however you want. But those are all the tabs outside the optimizer. Now that we're on the optimizer, let's just talk about this. This optimizer heavily looks at the metric here. It obviously uses this metric to determine who are the best value plays, especially at their price tag. You can update this whatever you'd like to. You know, if you don't like the metrics that I have in place, you can update this. So like John Rahm at 1171.53. If you're like, I love John Rahm so much, I'm just going to mark him up to 1500. So be it. That's fine. You can do that. I'm going to keep it like this for now. But you can update these however you want. It's not going to break the optimizer. Now, there are some presets that you're going to probably want to look at. Maximum ownership. How much do you want? Like, how much exposure do you want of a golfer? You know, I advocate nothing more than 30%. So if I were to do this, I'd just go 30 all the way down. And what the optimizer is going to do is it's going to read this field here, which looks at how many saved lineups you have and how many instances you've owned of this golfer compared to the total lineups. If this number is less than that one, the optimizer won't select it at all unless you lock them in. So you have three options: yes, no, or blank. If you don't want to, you know, lock a golfer into a lineup, or I should say this, if you want to lock a golfer into a lineup, you hit Y. If you want to lock them out of a lineup, you hit no. As long as this says no, the optimizer will never select that golfer. If it says yes, it will always select that golfer. It will start with that golfer and then build from there. So that's how the lock part of it happens. Group is, actually, we'll get into this last. This will be the last thing we talk about. But yes, exposures is one thing that you want to look into. Locking a golfer in is another thing. Updating the metric is another thing. If you like my rankings, then you just keep those as is. You also have the presets down here of minimum salary, max salary. You're going to have to hand type this in. I have not yet figured out how to create a slider yet for this, and I don't really care. For me, it doesn't matter. But remember, I always say never leave more than $1,000 on the table. So I'll always have minimum at 49 and max at 50. The optimizer will look at this and make sure, you know, every lineup it creates is over 49,000 and under 50. So those are your presets. On the other thing is this conditional box. So let's talk about this. Here are all the buckets and the presets that I put in here. If you don't care about the bucket system whatsoever, put all of these to 0. Like, do not update them. Put these all to 0 in the min box, and in the max box, put 6. That way, it will just ignore all of these buckets altogether. But if you want the optimizer to look at these buckets and make sure it's selecting golfers from whatever buckets you put a minimum at, then you would update this column. And likewise, maximum. What is your max exposure you want of a golfer in this bucket? I talk about these in my preview videos all the time. So if you want the optimizer to choose more than 3 at a particular time, that's what you do. You just select here. And again, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as your options. So keep that in mind. And these go with all the buckets. Last year buckets, obviously the last year bucket box right there. Last week buckets, last week, course history, so on and so forth. So that covers basically the bulk of your conditional box. Now, scrolling down, we have the salary box. The only thing you have to really worry about here is the 6K. So you could look at it this way. You could actually delete this. This was not a part of my original optimizer. Actually, it was just a 6K range. Then I removed it to create these two sub 6K ranges, 6.5 and above and 6.4 and below. Obviously 6.5 plus means 6.5 and above, and the 6.5 minus is just meant to show you it's the lower 6K. You can set your mins and your maxes here, but be aware of this. Your mins here cannot exceed your max for this bucket here. So if you want one 6K from each of these ranges, you're going to have to put 2 here, or you're going to break the system and it's going to error out. It's not going to know what to do. So make sure that's how you do that if you want that. That's the only thing when it comes to these salary buckets, is just the 6K range. I added this just today, actually, because I know I want a 6K in most of my lineups. That's what that's usually what the bucket system says, or that's what past optimal lineups say, but it doesn't specify which 6K you want. And personally, I don't care what it selects, but I also don't want it to select 2 golfers in the 6K range, one from the top and one from the bottom. So that's why I would put 1 as my max. So that's how I have it set up. So those are the only things there. The last thing with the conditional box, I have currently 10 groups set up, but I intend to put 50. And basically what you can do is you can do this several different ways. This is going to be its own this could be its own video. But when it comes to grouping, usually if like John Rahm is paired with Rory McIlroy and let's say Sam Burns, if these guys are in the same group, if you follow me in the strategy videos and we go over marquee tee time pairings or just pairings in general, I usually tell you guys never pair up golfers in the same group. Just statistically, you never see the same golfers from the same group in the optimal lineup. Like you might see 1, very rarely will you see 2, but most definitely you'll never see 3. So this is a good way to limit that, and that's where you come down here and set your group numbers. So I know it says G1, that's just to say group 1. All you got to remember is just the number that goes with this. So this would be G1. So if I could put 1s for as many as I want. And this is the other thing. This is what I was saying, what you could do. So if I did this, we're never going to have the optimizer select golfers that have 1. We get a max of 1. So, actually, let me do it. This will be an easier way to do this. So if I hit yes here for Mark Leishman, it's going to select Mark Leishman, but it won't select any of these golfers here. So it won't select Bezuidenhout, Jason Day, Keith Mitchell, Jason Kokrak, so on and so forth. You can see that on the screen. I'm not going to go over it. So you can do it this way, or maybe this is your player pool. And what you want, you can set this number up to 6. So let's say a max of 4, but I want at least 2 golfers from this group to be selected. You can do it this way too. So that you can think of these as your cores as well. So if I hit run optimizer, it's going to select 2 golfers that are in group 1. So I know I can't really see which golfer was chosen, but so we have Hideki, Scott. So he's in that group. Keith Mitchell, was he in that group? He sure was. So now I have my 2 guys here. Do we have more? Glover? No, I don't think I do. Okay. But anyways, that's also how you can do it. And you can come down here and validate that the optimizer only selected 2 golfers from that group. Now, if I hit 3, it's going to try to select 3. If I scroll down, it'll tell you it's selected 3. And obviously you can, do the validations yourself on here, but that's a fun way to do the grouping thing down here. I'm just using it because I don't want more than 1 from the same T group, and that's what I'm going to have here. You can update these numbers however you want it. You have a number 1 to 10. I'll make sure that says 1 to 50 or 0 to 50, I should say. No, 1 to 50. I'll just make that validation larger. So that's what you can use all of these conditionals for. And by the time, maybe next week, I'll have all 50 of these done. Maybe this week I'll just have 20 done, but either way, you can do it this way. It's pretty fun. Now I have run and save 9 lineups, run and save 50 lineups, run and save 90 lineups. I'm not going to select those buttons and watch have us watch the optimizer build those lineups. Here's what I suggest. If you do put max ownerships in here, I would run the optimizer maybe manually a few times just to see what the optimizer is selecting. Because as robust as I've created this, it's still very linear, and it's not gonna be as accommodating as you want it to be. So just see what it selects. I like to kind of force certain lineups to be created first, because again, it's looking at this metric. So if you have a golfer that's way out there, like if we went back and gave Jon Rahm 1,500 as the metric, it's always going to want to be selecting Jon Rahm as many times as it possibly can. And if your ownerships kind of go in this revolving pattern, and what I mean by that is if you say you have one golfer at 16% and another guy down here at 16%, they're probably going to be in the same lineup every 6 lineups? I think it's every 6 lineups. So every 6 lineups will be a Rory Taylor Gooch lineup. You can mitigate that by changing one of these to a 14%, but you're never going to see that until you create a few lineups yourself. So I usually like to do the run 9 lineups first, just to see what the optimizer is doing. And it might select certain golfers together quite a bit, especially if you're following the bucket logic that's here, or if you set these conditionals kind of strict. Where, if you had a player pool of 6 golfers, it just might select 2 golfers together every single time it can. And it won't select, one of those golfers with the other 4 ever. But you can force it to, and that's what I would suggest you guys to do, is do it that way. But if you don't care, you can hit run and save 90 lineups. I currently have this set up to every time I hit this run optimize, you're going to see a little N over here. This N is indicating it's the lowest value golfer from the 6 golfers chosen. And so if I go to Denny McCarthy at $7,100 and I scroll down here and I take a look, there's Denny McCarthy. The optimizer will make sure we never select Denny McCarthy again. And why do I have it set up this way? This is the only way Excel's going to be able to create unique lineups. So again, it helps with making it a bit more complex, but it's still very linear. Most optimizers will build, thousands of lineups based off your criteria and give you the top, if you set conditionals up here to 30% of Jon Rahm, it's going to give you the best possible lineups it can with 30% of Rahm, and then follow all of the other ownership percentages. And like I said, those optimizers run like thousands of iterations of lineups to give you the most optimal, however many lineups you set it to create. So if you set it to create 100 lineups, it's going to give you 100 optimal lineups following your max exposures and all the other rules that you have. And it's looking at all of those players. It's building thousands and thousands of lineups and trying to find the best, like it's just picking, the best lineups it possibly can. Whereas on Excel, it's the first lineup that's created, say Jon Rahm's in it, it's going to go, okay, well, Jon Rahm is always going to be the first lineup, no matter what you save it to. And it's always going to have the first 5 golfers selected with Jon Rahm. Those 5 golfers are then not available until their maximum ownership exposures are relinquished, or they're no longer below the actual ownership level that you have it at. So you got to wait until those lineups or those golfers are available. Whereas maybe one of those 5 golfers is actually in a more optimal lineup, not with Jon Rahm. And that's the only thing that Excel's not going to be able to do. So that's kind of the downfall of this whole thing. But I will say this, how I have it created is leaps and bounds better than when I first started running this optimizer. The functionality of creating unique lineups was never there. You had to primarily focus on your maximum ownership exposures, and you had to like really creative with these, because if you didn't know, if you make one lineup, you know, a golfer is going to be owned 100%. Then if you make 2 lineups, it's 50, and then 3 lineups, it's 33, 4 lineups, 25, 5 lineups, 20, 6 lineups, 16, 7 is 14, 8 is 12, 9 is 11, 10 is 10, obviously, and then it goes down from there. So you would have to hit these certain ownership thresholds. Like you'd have to put your golfers somewhere in between these ownership thresholds to either show up as many times as you want or not. And then on top of that, they fall into these patterns. So if you have, you know, 3 golfers that are owned at you, or you set at 16% of your max ownership exposure, they would primarily run together. Every 6 lineups, they would continuously show up. That absolutely bothered the hell out of me. So now I've found a way to create unique lineups, not having to really worry about maximum exposure maximum exposures. It creates how I want it to. So yeah, if you want certain players to get reintroduced in your player pool, just come down here. That's why I say run 9 lineups and then stop, because you can come back here and say, oh, I don't want Patrick Reed not to be in the next the next lineup. Same with Lucas Glover. Just go in here and delete them, or hit the drop down and hit the empty one. And so now they'll be reintroduced into your player pool, and the optimizer will select them as long as the exposure is higher than the ownership, or it matches it, one of the two. So yeah, you can always come into these fields and delete them. Just be understanding of that. I do have reset ownership, sweet spot defaults, hard reset. Hard reset's just going to switch all of these to 0s, all of these to 6s, maximum ownership to 100%. I don't think you necessarily need to hit that button. The sweet spot defaults are going to be set up whatever I have for that week. So if you messed around with this and you're like, oh man, what did he have as those ownerships? Well, first of all, you can just close out of your optimizer that you saved to your desktop, delete it, reopen the email that I sent you, and then you'll have this fresh again. That's one way to do it. Or you can just hit the sweet spot defaults button and it will switch that. And reset ownership is just going to reset this to 100%. There you go. So if you didn't see that before, if I put this to 2% and just click and drag down here, you can see they're all at 2%. If I reset ownership, it goes back to 100. I don't have the sweet spot defaults already set up, so I'm not going to click that button, and I'm not going to click the hard reset because that just defeats my purpose right now. Just wanted to show you all those. And then if you didn't like any of your lineups, you want to restart all over, hit the delete all lineups. It will give you a warning message. You know, if you don't want to delete your lineups, they just hit the no button. You can also go in here and delete this information here. So what I would do is just go in here, delete, and then like if you don't like one of your lineups, just do that, because then when you go to save, I mean, it's going to show you only have one lineup. Go ahead, save it, and it just bumps down. It bumps your next one down. Of course, this is going to take a while to think. But anyways, if I go back there, now you're going to see the lineup that was right before it goes down one level, and it continues to do that. Now, if you come across issues like, let's say, let me switch 1, 1, 1, 1 and put this to 4 and say I want 3. So if I run this optimizer with this criteria, I'm going to break it. So there we go. We broke it. All of these are NAs. That means your conditionals are way too strict. But if I save that, this is what's going to happen sometimes when you run and save 9, 50, or 90 lineups. If I save this, you're going to come here and you're going to see all these NAs and you'll be like, what? This is not what I want. Just go in here, select B, the cell in B that has, you know, the errors in it. Go all the way over to J, delete it. And then I would suggest just copying this, how many lineups you have underneath it, copy that and paste it up here. And then that way, everything still stays pretty uniform. You don't have to worry about it having gaps in there, because that's going to be kind of dumb when you go and you load these into your mass uploads. Yeah, and go ahead and delete these. Again, get rid of your conditionals that make it way too strict. And then hit run optimize again. And it should give you an actual lineup. There we go. So that's how you use the optimizer. I know it was kind of lengthy, but I wanted to provide as much detail as possible. I am always looking to improve this. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. But yeah, this is meant to help all of us. And like I said, I built this for me. This is to help me build lineups. But if it can help you guys too, I think it's a hell of a tool. I mean, it saves me a ton of time. It looks at all the bucket conditionals that I want it to. I don't have to eyeball that whatsoever. I can't wait to have all these group conditionals in here, because then I'm just going to put all the tea time groups right here. And it will never, however I have it set, it will either never select more than one, more than two, or it will always select one from whatever. But, oh man, that's the real key piece that really, for me, makes this optimizer well worth it. So for the time being, this is free. I'm sending this to all you guys every single week. Whoever wants it, you just got to reach out to me and obviously participate in the channel. But yeah, like I said, reach out with any questions, either through email. I prefer you to just do it in the YouTube comments section. That way everybody will get a little bit of help with your questions. That's all I have. Thanks, guys.